Hey everybody, Chuck here, barely battle ready. Today we got a recap video for the post LVO event. Both Drake and I attended LVO this year, and we're gonna go through kind of our experience at the event, the good, the bad, the ugly, everything in between, and kind of finish off with our expectations of what we are trying to accomplish in the 2023 season. So we're going to jump right into this thing. Appreciate you all checking out the channel. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, follow us on Twitch, all that good stuff. Tell your friends, tell your family. Much appreciate all the love and support that we've already received. Let's get to it. All right, so let's talk about your expectations leading up to LVO. What did you expect from the event? What did you expect from your play, and etc.
Okay. Yeah, so the event itself, I've only seen one image of like the hall of players
Right.
before. That was like the only thing I'd known was just a bunch of dudes in a room playing 40K. And it's cool seeing that, and I didn't expect the amount of people there. I know there was like almost 1,000 people who showed up, but I guess it's hard to put into words what 1,040K players looks like and what the kind of space that takes up. So yeah, so I expected this big old hall, a bunch of people playing, and for it to be completely unhearable, and you'd have to be yelling the whole time to hear your opponent. Honestly, it wasn't that bad. Like the hall's ceilings are pretty high. There was some decent spacing between the tables. So yeah, it was the actual event was super cool. Getting to see there. I think the first thing that sticks out of my brain is that I walked into the event hall and I saw this orc display board that I had seen on Reddit like a month or two ago, and it was like this starstruck moment, being like, oh my gosh, this is one of those internet guys with like one of the coolest display boards I've ever seen, and it's right here, and it was the first thing that I saw. So immediately I was just kind of smitten with joy just to be there.
Yeah, the display boards are getting crazy,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
crazy.
I'm pretty new to like the tournament scene and like the serious hobby scene of it, and when I saw just like a display board with some textured paint and some fun stuff, I thought those were incredible. But man, there was some ridiculous stuff at LVO. There was a guy who had like a display board with a monitor as his backdrop and fog machines, and he had like a portable battery to run it all, and I was just like, this is way beyond my capabilities. So yeah, my expectations were like definitely blown away. I had no idea what to expect. I kind of just went in blind with high hopes, and it was awesome. Like the event itself was super cool. Met a ton of awesome people. Had some really good games. And yeah, I got to hang out with BBR guys and the Utah guys, and had a great time. Um, my expectations for my own performance, I think, I don't know, I wasn't expecting to do super well for having not played the game in a month or two, but I did better than I thought I would, especially against what I was up against. Um, so I ended up 2-4, and my 2 wins were versus Tau, which to me
Makes
doesn't
no
make any
sense.
sense. Makes no sense. Like why am I winning as Grey Knights against Tau and losing to closer range armies? I guess that's a tactical error in some way. But either way, all the games were awesome. I had a great time playing versus everyone. Um, I had literally no complaints about the event at all because it was such an awesome time. And going into like the exhibition space and seeing the vendors and the GW store and FLG and all that stuff was super super cool. Seeing all those top players playing on the big screen, like the high level tables, was super cool. watching some of the games the night after. I would go back and get on YouTube and watch some of the highlights from some of the matches and just kind of see where the pro players were at was super cool. And then seeing Grey Knights players come out. There was a Thunderhawk gunship, and it made me super jealous, and I want one now.
Wait. Someone had a Thunderhawk in their list?
Yes, and it was a Grey Knights player who had a Thunderhawk in their list.
How many points is a Thunderhawk?
I think it's 800.
Oh, really?
Points.
I thought it would be pushing 1,000 easy.
Yeah. No, it's reasonable. But like, it makes my Stormraven memes seem like kids play when a guy brings a Thunderhawk. But there were also some really good Grey Knights players there too. Like, I was not expecting. I think after day 1 there were 6 undefeated Grey Knight players, and after day 2, I think the best one was 5-1, and there was another 5-1 Grey Knights player. But it was cool seeing people be successful with an army that I'm playing. That's not like known to be a successful army.
For sure.
At least in the current meta. I know Arcs of Omen, things have changed, and this last tournament, Grey Knights kind of popped off. But there's, I don't know, like, I have nothing but good things to say about LVO, and I cannot wait to just do this every year for the rest of my life. So maybe that's a big commitment. I don't know. Maybe that's too much commitment. But yeah, it was super awesome. I want to keep going back. It was great. It was great. So what about you, Chuck? This is your 4th LVO.
Yes.
What were your expectations for the event and your own play?
Yeah, so first, kind of leading up to LVO, you know, I of course set the bar pretty high for myself. I would love to end up 4-2 is like my goal, but that's where I'm at skill level wise. I was like, if I can make 3-3, I'll be happy. And that was kind of my mentality. And the reason why I had that was I've played more games of Warhammer 40K this last year than I have ever played in my entire life. Like, within a year's time span. I just haven't played that many games. And like, the running joke, of course, at the tournament scene locally is if they see my name show up, it's a surprise, because I usually don't show up. So, but also, I've experienced some of the highs and lows of LVO, and we mentioned in the past, I think we might have talked about it in the interview with Scott and Thomas specifically, that there's been times where like Battlescribe went down and all hell broke loose and that kind of stuff, and this LVO seemingly went very flawless. There wasn't any issues with pairings or anything like that. I can say from a perspective standpoint of previous LVOs compared to this one, for example, like some of the tertiary stuff that occurs at the event, there was plenty of water available for all the players. They had bottles of water that were outside. I saw little water stands all over the place and all that kind of stuff, and which is great. And it may not sound like much, but when you have almost 1,000 players that are sweating it up at tables, you need to stay hydrated. It's a big part of the game, and actually it really came into play during the tournament, and for myself and for Rumple specifically. But the food was better than it was the year prior. I wasn't a huge fan of the breakfasts, but you know what, like, who gives a shit? Like, they had coffee and stuff and all that good stuff. And the lines were pretty long, but they actually went reasonably quick comparatively. So that was all a big plus. The vendor hall was super cool, getting to walk around and see all the different vendors that were there. All that good stuff. That was really cool. I mean, I think the event was great. It was awesome. I didn't really get to see some of the other games that I wanted to see. I wanted to check out the BattleTech area, and I didn't make it over there, unfortunately. I wanted to get a picture with Duncan. Did not get that picture with Duncan. I didn't even see him, honestly. I kept looking for him around the hall. I'd go to the vendor hall and see if he was over at the booth that he had up, and I never ran into him. So
I think my dad ran into him.
Did he really?
Yeah, he was telling me. He's like, I was going up to the room and I met this British guy who's a painter, and he like is selling paints. I'm like, oh my god, you met Duncan.
That's funny. Yeah, it was awesome getting to meet your dad at the event.
Mhm.
It was super cool. So like, all of that was amazing. As far as how I played like complete dog shit. Was very disappointed in my games, and not ever at my opponent. And I don't want any of them to uh, take any kind of negativity about how I might have been, because like there was a game in particular where I got real salty at myself because of just this blunder I made in the very first turn, and I got to go first. So I got to watch the whole game unfold with me knowing how badly I messed up. And it was very frustrating for me. And I could tell my opponent could tell that I was a little frustrated, but I assured him it was nothing to do with him, everything to do with myself. And it was funny because so I ended up going 1-4. I didn't finish out the tournament. I got so flustered um, at the end of round 1 on day 2 that I was in a real negative space, and I was kind of frustrated and stewing a little bit, and I didn't want to take that negativity with me to the next table and to the next table, because I know that if I went and played the next game and it went south, my negativity would just build on itself, and it would be like this horrible snowball effect. And not that I would ever take it out on my opponents, but for those that know me and those that have played me, you can see a drastic difference. Like, I'm usually very jovial and very talkative, but there was a couple moments where I realized like I didn't feel like I was being fun to be around, and I didn't want that type of kind of mentality to kind of be what people got from me. And so I thought it was better that I just take a step back for my own sake and for my opponent's sake. And yeah, it sucks because they get repaired into something else. But I know that there was plenty of players there. At least I hope that anyone in rounds 5 and 6, I'm hoping they got a match and didn't have to not get a match. So, but it really, later we'll talk a little bit more about it, but it really helped reinstill some things that I want to correct in this year. And I don't drop. The only time I've ever dropped out of a tournament was because I had a family obligation that I needed to fulfill, and that was the only reason. So like, this was really the first time where I've actually, I guess for a lack of a better phrase, I rage quit, right? Now, I didn't get all flustered and like flip the table and blah blah blah, but in my mind I was so furious with myself about the stupidity of which I played, and made just dumb mistakes that are just inexcusable with the number of reps that I have had over the last year. And so it was really that was the only downside I had. And again, it has nothing to do with the event, has nothing to do with any of that kind of stuff. It was just my own play.
Well, I agree. But you did play emissaries, right, during the tournament?
That's correct.
And I don't know, maybe I missed something, but you just started getting back into emissaries, right? Like, it hasn't been like an ongoing thing for a while.
Well, I at least got 5 or 6 plus games with emissaries, and I've played them previously. So it wasn't that I was brand new to them. I knew their tricks. Gotcha. I knew how they worked, and it was just about me executing it. And,
right.
And it just didn't work out that way. So, and that's okay, and that's all right. It's a learning experience. And I got to meet some great people, had some great games. I just didn't play to the level that I wanted to play at.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. I don't think I ever hit a moment where I was just like done. I think after day 1, I was super exhausted. I was a little grumpy after the 3rd game because it was one I definitely could have won, but I just got impatient with my play. But overall, like, I just learned so much. Facing into 2 of the same armies twice, I learned a lot more about those kinds of armies and what to expect going into them.
So we'll go through your pairings. Like, what armies did you face in each round?
Yeah. Let me pull up my little screenshot here just so I don't screw this up. Okay, so my first round was into this dude named Brian from Montana. Super cool guy. He runs like their whole tournament scene up there. And he's trying to put together like a Montana, basically like a Montana Open, essentially. So they're growing the scene. It's tough. Montana's a very spread out state, so I
Yeah.
get it. But super cool guy. Played Tau. He wasn't playing Tau Sept. He was doing this custom Tau list, which was kind of cool. So no hammerheads to worry about. Um, I wish I remembered the game a little better, but I ended up taking that one 92 to 87. I think it was probably the best game that I played all weekend, which is weird because normally my first game of any tournament is a loss. If you look at any tournament I've ever played in, my first game is a loss almost every time. So going up against Tao, I was already like, man, this is gonna suck. And then we ended up duking it out, and we didn't even know who won until the very last turn, which was awesome. I love those kind of games. Super cool
Yeah.
guy. Um, and that I think in that game I just totally skipped my psychic phase once, which is bad. That's really bad for Grey Knights who take Purifying Ritual and generate CP in their list. So I can definitely relate to you in making stupid mistakes. It's like, how do I skip a whole phase? Which is arguably one of the most important ones. So I went up against Tau. The second game, I went up against 40 Deathwing Terminators. I played versus Deathwing Terminators once before, and it went really well. And I felt pretty confident going into it. I made a very huge glaring mistake on turn one. So kind of like you, I watched the game unfold.
Mm-hmm.
After just moving things up on turn one. I could have just not done anything, and it would have been a better play. But I played against this guy named John. I can't remember his last name. But he's part of a Swedish team, but lives in England and is American. So very confusing. Super cool guy. He's a very, very competitive player, and he's like, "Hey man, don't feel bad." He took top 3 in like some huge event earlier this year, and I'm like, "Okay, well I feel much better about this loss." And he was super nice. Like I had asked him, I was like, "Hey, what are some things that maybe I could have done differently?" Blah blah blah. And he's like, "Yeah, you just shouldn't have moved on turn one, so I could charge you." I was like, "Yeah, this was my big mistake." And I did it in the worst possible way, where he could charge one 10-man Terminator brick into like 3 different units, and he just split all of his attacks like evenly between those units and just killed everything.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm just like, yeah, this is Deathwing Terminators. I knew this was going to happen as soon as they got into melee. But yeah, he was super cool guy, super fun game. I learned a lot. That one ended 61 to 91. And then the third game of the day was the classic Grey Knights Thousand Suns matchup. I have a
Always
really
fun.
poor record into Thousand Suns. I don't know why. I just can't seem to figure out how to beat these guys as Grey Knights. It's supposed to be like a hard counter. Mathematically, it's like a 70% win rate or something versus Thousand Suns. But I find the way to make it work against me. I look for that 30%. It was a good game though. It was close. It ended 61 to 77. I felt really bad the whole game because I think he got 4 spells off over 5 turns. I
Oof.
denied everything, which is kind of a feels bad when you're playing Grey Knights against a heavy psychic army, is when you just deny their whole phase. But that's kind of what we're here for, and he ended up winning anyways. So I don't know. It was a good game. Scarab Occult Terminators are just the bane of my existence. Their Kopeshes are just AP3, and my stuff is all AP2, and Armor Contempt is just I can't kill them as efficiently as they can kill me.
Yep.
Because I don't bring swords. But that might be changing here pretty soon. We'll see. Good game though, awesome game. The day ended, and I was 1-2. Winning the first game, I think, was the biggest bane to my mental, my mentality for the whole tournament, because it gave me that hope. I'm like, oh my god, I won versus Tau. I'm coming hot out of round 1.
Right?
I can do anything. If I can beat Tau on round 1, I can do anything. So I came out super hot, and then I lost the next 2 games, and I was super sad. For the rest of the day, and I was like, what am I doing? How am I losing these games? These are supposed to be kind of favorable matchups. I have Mortal Wounds for Deathwing, and I'm still losing. I've got denies for Thousand Suns, I'm still losing, but somehow I beat Tau. What's that all about? So yeah, I just went. I delved internally for the rest of the night to try and figure out what I had done wrong. And I was exhausted. I hadn't played 40K in a month or so. And 3 games in a row at a GT is a lot of games. And I was just mentally and physically exhausted at that point.
Well, it's funny, the exhaustion part. So, generally speaking, I have one of those like fold up carts that I will bring with me to the tournament, because for those that have never been to LVO, pro tip, get a room at the event center, wherever, like whatever casino it's being held at. And the last 2 years it's been at the Rio. I would assume next year it's going to be at the Rio as well, but who knows. And the reason being is that the tower, or whichever tower you may be staying in, it's a walk to get to the actual hall where you're going to play. I mean, it's a good, what,
10
minute
walk,
like depending on what floor you're on, and also get there early, because the elevators get stupid crowded when it's like crunch time. Like there were times where we had to go up to go down because we couldn't catch an elevator going down, because every time it would show up it was already so full that you just had to wait. So we would catch one going up and then go all the way up and then slowly make our way down, one floor at a time. And then like people would, like, the door would open, we're all crammed in there like, you know, guinea pigs, like all up in their little cage, and no one can move because everyone's got their trays and everything else going on. And so like, yeah, that, so pro tip,
minis.
yeah, get out into the conference hall early so you can dodge the traffic. So, but the thing is, I didn't bring my cart this time because I was like, oh, my army's so small. I play Custodes, right? It's like 20 models, so there's nothing to carry. It's like my cart is overkill. Last year, the tables had multiple chairs at each table on your side, so there was space for you to set your stuff down on one chair, because there's no space to put anything on the tables, because it's like one table ends, the next table immediately begins.
Sometimes they overlap.
Yeah. And so the cart allowed me to post up all my stuff and then use the chair to sit. Because I didn't have my cart, it was standing for 9 hours plus. So if you're, depending on your state of physical fitness, that might work out for you. If you're a kicker and you go running for 5 miles every morning, sure. If you're Chuck Burns, doesn't work that way. Cardio, no thank you. So that was exhausting. Like, and I'm a little bit taller than normal, right? I'm taller than the average height. So bending over to like move stuff around the table repeatedly over and over again, by the end of the day, my back was killing me. And like, and I'm not even as tall as Rumble. Rumble's 6'6". You know, there's some big guys that play 40K, tall guys. Like
I
Brady.
think 40K's like average height is like more than normal.
Oh, dude, like I feel short at LVO. When I look around the hall and I'm like, I can't see the tops of these people's heads. Like that makes me feel short, and I'm not the shortest guy. So like, yeah. So anyways, get you a cart. I'll even throw a link up in this video down in the description, because like the cart
It's not even a sponsored video. We'll do it because you need it.
I am not an affiliate marketer. I don't get anything from it, but it is a great cart. It works well. It's great. It's handy. Now, the con to that, though, of course, is like there's escalators. So you got to take the elevators instead of being able to go up and down the escalators. I mean, you could risk it. That's on you. So yeah, anyways, go ahead. So that was it. So at the end of day 1, you were 2-1. All right, so let's talk about day 2.
No, 1 and 2. 1 and 2.
Oh, I'm sorry, 1 and 2.
Yep. So day 2, opened out hot against Death Guard. Went against Mortarion. He was playing the Wretches, which is exploding sixes is their contagion. Exploding sixes to hit melee, I should say, is their contagion aura. So that was kind of scary. I played very aggressive on turn 1. So he went first. He had a couple PBCs he shot off, and he moved Mortarion and a couple of the flesh mowers up to kind of contest the center left objective. And so I played very, very aggressive because I was like, okay, Mortarion is out here. I can target him with my Mortal Wound Bomb Librarian without having to do any jank. I've got 2 Interceptor squads and a Paladin squad who can just bear down on his position. Between Smites, my Mortal Wound Bomb Librarian, and Interceptors, he should die on turn 1.
Right.
Um,
I'm guessing he did not die.
he did not die. He did not die. He denied my Vortex of Doom on like an 11, and I was like, that sucks. Because that's minimum 3 mortals.
Yeah.
To Morty. So Morty just made so many 5-up Feel No Pains. And I'm gonna say that the LVO dice, if you bought those dice, those shits are rigged.
Big Mike's.
Alright. Those things are rigged. Those are banned. Those dice they're super cool looking, but man, that guy was rolling so hot on his Feel No Pains. I ended up taking Morty down to, I think, 8 wounds on turn 1, which wasn't enough. So he popped a strat to like Heroic one of his Flesh Mowers over. My Paladins left his other Flesh Mower on 1 wound. And these are Hammer Paladins, so I needed to get 5 attacks through. I made him make like 11 saves out of 13 hits. And he saved all but, like every save but 3, so he was down to 1 wound. Yeah, it was disgusting. It was disgusting.
Woo!
And I'm just like, I think that's game. I didn't kill the Flesh Mower. His Flesh Mower Heroic killed an Interceptor squad. Morty killed the other Interceptor squad. Now my Mortal Wound Bomb Librarian is just out in the open like a dumbass with his Combi Melta and just sitting there missing with that too. And I'm just like, he's gonna collect 600 points of my army every turn now with Morty, and that's exactly what happened. And I couldn't kill Morty. I couldn't kill his Flesh Mowers. They just lived at 1 wound for the rest of the game. It was brutal. I don't like saying it was the dice's fault, but that game felt like it was the dice's fault. Everything that could have gone wrong went wrong for me.
Oh, I know the feeling.
It felt like it was going to go right.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, it was still a good game. The dude was super cool. We had a great time playing. It was a very casual game. We knew like we're not contentious at that point, being 1 and 2, so we had a good time. We did a little Calder Drago Mortarian like cinematic shot that we took at the end of the game, where Calder Drago's like up on the battlements, like staring down his shield at Morty. So that was fun.
Very cool.
Yeah, fun game. So we go to lunch. After that, you, Rumpel, and I, and Christian, we all went to Smashburger. And when we were in line at Smashburger, they put the pairings up, and I'm like, okay, cool, I'm playing Eldar. I've never played Eldar, not one time competitively.
Craft World,
ever. I've actually never played versus Eldar, a single time.
That's crazy.
I know, right? Because we have a few Eldar players in our local scene. So I was like, cool, Eldar, this is going to be a good matchup. Stormbolters love 3 toughness 1 wound models with 0 AP. I love this. This matchup's going to be good. So heading back to the hall, I check my phone again, and it's like, oh, we repaired. What am I up against? 40 Deathwing Terminators again. And I was like, no!
Oh, God.
Why is this happening? The guy I played against, his name is John. He's from England. Super cool dude. He's been playing for ages. I think he said like 20 or 30 years.
This is the John that I played.
Is it? You played versus him too?
I played him in my very first LVO.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, he was a super, super cool dude. He gave me a little sticker that I put on my box. I gave him a BBR shirt. The game was much, much closer than the first one. I think I made some really good plays. I played it a little too slow, though. I let him sit on the middle for a little too long. I think the highlight of that game for me was my Mortal Wound Bomb Librarian killed both his Librarian... Oh, I'm sorry, killed his Apothecary and his Captain in a single Psychic phase.
Wow.
Yeah, it was... I felt bad, but I was like, I hate Death Guard. Or Deathwing.
Deathwing, yeah.
So yeah, that was kind of cool seeing that happen. We ended up just slogging over the middle, but I was just a turn too late. So he ended up scraping it out, 79 to 86. Also,
close.
I made the mistake of taking Psychic Interrogation and then killing his 2 characters in 1 turn because it gave me fewer interrogation targets.
Yeah.
But what the funny part about that game was his librarian charged my librarian, and they just stared at each other for 4 turns or 3 turns, just doing nothing. Like we were rolling dice, and he was like trying to kill my librarian, and I was rolling dice. And I was like 1s and 2s, miss, come on! And I had like 2 turns in a row where I just missed every attack and every wound. And I was like, yes, I have a chance to score some more points.
That's funny.
I ended up only getting, I think, 3 points or 3 interrogates before I killed him. But yeah, they were stuck in for a little while, and that was a lot of fun seeing the librarian duel. Yeah, that was a fun game. It felt a lot better than the first game where I just made the comedic error of moving it all. Which in this game I also moved and threw away my hammer terminators in a single turn, and that was brutal. But yeah, it's still a good game. Learned a little bit more about Deathwing. I like when Deathwing doesn't have, I think it's Lazarus, because he has a 5-up Feel No Pain aura. That feels better to play into, or worse to play into, than just a regular apothecary. So that was a fun game.
Very
and
cool.
then after that game, the 6th game, I look at the pairings, and I got paired up against Simon, who's one of the local players here.
Yep.
Yeah, and it was Tau. So I was like, cool, okay, so Deathwing Tau, twice in 1 tournament. Let's see what happens. Yeah, we just had a really casual game. He killed some stuff, I killed some stuff. It was just a good time. We were both like very, very happy and grateful that we paired into each other, because we knew it wasn't going to be like some hyper competitive, salty 6 round player. Because going into it, I was 1-5, so it's like, some of the people who are going to be playing at 1-5 might be a little salty. But yeah, we just had a good game.
Like me.
Yeah, like Chuck. No, it was a good time. Yeah, we just played some Grey Knights, some classic Grey Knights versus Tau. I think I felt like I diced him that game. Everything that could have gone right went right, and I don't know. It was a good game, but yeah, I ended up taking it 98-81, so it was still pretty close.
It's a high scoring game.
Yeah, super high scoring for Grey Knights. The 2 Tau games were the 2 best missions I could have gotten for Grey Knights, which was nice. That doesn't normally happen. I usually get Tau on the bad missions. But I was on the Necron terrain, and if you guys were at LVO, there's one terrain set that everybody complained about, and it was the Necron terrain, because that terrain just, there's nowhere to hide.
Well, I luckily was able to talk to one of the gentlemen that works with Frontline, and he was talking about how they are rotating all of those sets out. So, I mean, it's going to be a process, but the Necron one, and there's another one. I can't.
Probably like the Sector
Industrial.
Mechanicus one, the Industrial one.
That
yeah. I played.
Great.
Yeah, I played on that versus Tau, and I was like, these are the 2 worst terrain sets versus Tau, but I won. So
yeah, it was.
I don't know how that works.
I played on the Industrial set too, and it was terrible. I mean, and it's nothing against Frontline, like the set.
Right.
It was an interesting set, and it's thematic and all that kind of stuff. It just doesn't play very well in the competitive scene.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, that was my my tournament. Day 3 was very casual. I'll talk about that though after we talk about your games. I know, Chuck, you had a really rough day 1.
Day 1 was real rough. Yeah. It was. So game 1, I had the weirdest pairings day 1. Like, it was so strange. I was so concerned about pairing into Tau, Votan, and Nids, and didn't hit any of them. They are the most prevalent armies of all the armies. They were like the top 3 factions that were being brought, and I didn't hit a single one. Probably because of how bad I did. But my game 1 was against a guy named Steve, really cool guy, played Chaos Knights, and I had never played Chaos Knights. Oh no, that's not true. I played Natalie at War Games for Warriors. That was the first time, and she played basically a very similar list. I don't remember what sub-faction she was playing, but this guy was playing Vecatrix.
Yeah. It's either Vextrix or Hecatrix.
However you pronounce it. But Steve was super cool.
Was it the one where he did mortals to himself, or the one where he gets +1 AP and attacks?
He did mortals to himself. He called it juicing his guns. And he did little tokens that said
Yeah.
juiced guns or like juiced legs or whatever,
Yeah.
juiced whatever, you know.
Yeah.
But the
Extrix. Yeah, that one's cool. I like that. I like that one.
yeah. It was it's a very strong subfaction for sure. And so his list was basically, it was the dog walker list, right? It's like Abaddon, a whole bunch of baby knights, and then he also had some flamers. And so in the game, of course, because I'm playing emissaries, like I want to go first because I can get that free advance, not free, the 2 CP advance move to move my bikes up into the midfield. And then if I'm going first, I'm literally in their deployment zone on turn 1. I can pretty much charge whatever I want, yada, yada, yada. Which is exactly what happened. I won the roll. I went first. I threw my bikes forward. My other bikes followed up right behind them. I shot all my rockets at one of the baby knight that had all of the close combat. And I'm pretty sure, I can't remember if I killed him in shooting or if I got him down to like nothing. But he was either heavily wounded or was dead. One of the two. He might have been alive on a few wounds, but I could be wrong. But anyways, on that side of the board where he hard deployed like 6 of his like 8 or 9 baby knights, and I was able to basically touch like half of them. Like on my first turn, I got 2 points from behind enemy lines with my bikes on turn 1. That was how far across the board I was, because it is hammer and anvil deployment. We played all the missions in order from the 31 to
11 to 33.
Yeah, 11 to 33, whatever. And so I felt really good at the end of my first turn. I killed, like, of the 6 baby knights that were there, he only had 1 that was close combat oriented, and all the rest were shooty. So they have no AP other than their guns. And I was touching a bunch of them. So he either falls back and doesn't shoot, or he sits there and kicks at me repeatedly with 4 or 5 attacks at AP 0. I'm willing to take those odds. Fortunately for me, I could not make a 2-up save. He plinked away 4 bikes over the course of the game in close combat with knights that have no AP. So I was just like, I don't know what to do with that. Like, I applied all the pressure I could. I was able to basically keep Abaddon out of the game. Like, he deployed him on the other side of the board, and then I redeployed on the other side of the board opposite of Abaddon, because I was like, I mean, I'm not tanking to win that guy. He's too nasty. I don't have my Galatus Dreadnought to try to, soak up -1 damage, 4 up invuln saves against him. So at -1 to hit. Not that that makes any difference to Abaddon, but my point was like I felt like I had a very strong game plan. It just didn't execute. Steve's rolls, I think, were pretty statistical. Like, he had some decent rolls, but I don't think it was like, I think that my dice diced me is what happened.
You diced yourself.
Yeah, I couldn't understand how I was losing bikes to 2-up saves over and over and over again. And so, at the end of the game, he won 93-49 because I just basically, he was able to kill my bikes, get out of combat, and to just shoot the crap out of the rest of my army. So just the way it worked out. That was my game 1. So I was like, oh man, that stinks. I don't generally like to blame dice, because I think over the course of all your games, it is statistical. However, if it gets heavy-handed on one game, if you roll really well, like if I'm spiking 4-ups constantly, it's very hard for the opponent to get rid of my models. So it's the same kind of thing. But it all averages out in the end. It just wasn't in this game. It was not an average game.
Right.
So going to round 2, I play another guy named Steve. Funny enough, back-to-back Steves. He's playing Imperial Knights. So I'm like, okay, I feel like Knights are a pretty decent matchup for Custodes, especially with the amount of shooting that I had. Because I had 3x3 Sagittarum, 2 units of 3 bikes with salvo launchers. I had, the banner that ignores light and dense cover. I have Trajan to give me my rerolls to ones to hit and wound, yada, yada, yada. So me and Steve play. It was a great game. It was very close all the way through the game. It was my 1 win, unfortunately for this Steve. And so it ended up being 88-70. Only reason I was able to get the win, though, is I was able to I made one good movement, which was my consolidate, and I was able to turn my bikes in a way where I blocked his knights from being able to get out of his deployment zone and like really press the middle, which gave me the middle. And so that is, I think, where it flip-flopped the game, because he couldn't really move as far as he wanted
Right.
to. But awesome guy. He also runs a Instagram channel. Is that what it's called? Instagram? Do they call channels?
Instagram.
Not called channels.
He has an Instagram.
Or
I think it's just an
I don't
Instagram.
know. Instagram? Yeah. I don't know. This is how old I am. So
Clearly, we're both heavy into Instagram.
Yeah. And so I'll have to put the description in there for y'all to check it out. I'm pretty sure he's a professional photographer. I don't know if he does it for a living or does it on the side, but like it's part of his thing. I think it's called like Grim Light Studios. I'll double check that, but I'll put it in the description. Y'all should go check it out. Super cool guy. Great game. A lot of fun. And then round 3 in the first day, I ended up playing Chaos Knights again, amazingly. So Knights.
If I were you, I would have been tilted just playing Knights 3 times in a row, and I would have quit. I would have resigned after day game 2.
Well, you know, funny enough, he was playing the exact same sub faction as the guy round 1. Steve from round 1 was playing the same faction as what was his name? His name was Nicholas.
A lot of people prefer the Iconoclast households versus the Infernal households. So it's curious hearing 2 Vextrixes in a row.
Well, they're pretty potent because they have the ability. They have like the Salamanders treatment. So on one of their guns, they can reroll a hit and they can reroll a wound, which is pretty strong when you got knight shooting, right? You know, so. And then on top of it, they can juice their guns to get like +1 to wound, like all kinds of stuff. Like they get a lot of buffs. What I also learned about Chaos Knights is that there is a crap ton of bookkeeping. I mean, just a ludicrous amount. And so like trying to keep track of what is happening, which baby knights have which buffs and blah, blah, blah.
And how far down their track they are to upgrade their buffs.
Yeah, because it's based on like the number of wounds that they do to other models that are out there, and they can get like permanent buffs for the rest of the game and so on, which is cool. But for a player that doesn't know much about Chaos Knights, it can be very daunting to kind of see. Yeah. And not that any of the players...
the whole Doom chart that they have to go down.
Yeah. And so the nice thing with playing Custodes, though, is like a lot of that's leadership-based stuff, and I'm not really concerned about leadership-based stuff. Like, you can put some debuffs on me, but it isn't going to be as nearly as potent as, say, like Orcs or you pick it, right? Regular Space Marines or whatever the case may be. So we played the game, and it was where all my frustrations came out. It was eerily close to my game 1, other than the dice. I won the roll to go first. He had deployed his warlord on the line. I got to redeploy. I moved, and my entire army shot at his warlord. Like almost every single model in my army shot at his warlord, put him down to like barely any wounds. But my dumbass forgot to move the unit of bikes that I pre-moved by spending 2 CP. So they were just in the middle of no man's land. They should have been 1.1 inches away from the warlord, and instead they were like 11 inches away. So I didn't realize my blunder until the assault phase. And then I was like, oh, shit. I'm fucked. So I'm like, I roll the dice to charge. I fail the charge. Command point reroll. Because at this point, I've committed to the center. And if I don't kill that big knight, let me put it this way. If I kill the big knight, what should have happened is I should have closed in close combat. My charge would have put me, because he had a bunch of baby knights behind the big knight, would have put me on top of the big knight with my ability to consolidate, and I could burn a CP to consolidate 6 inches instead of 3. I'd have been all in his backfield, tying up a bunch of knights for at least a turn, and his other knights were spread on the other side of the board. So I would have been able to basically focus my entire army on just a piece of his army, like a half or 3/4 of it. My game plan, I think, was solid.
My execution was piss poor. And then I saw when it unraveled on turn 1, I just was like, in my mind, I didn't understand. I was like, Chuck, how did you make such a dumb mistake? And so the rest of the game, I was just like stewing, trying to figure out a way to come back. It didn't matter. His big knight moved up, all his baby knights moved up, and they just obliterated but the bikes that should have charged him died. They shot at him and didn't do any wounds, by the way. I should have killed the warlord in shooting. Didn't kill him. So they did no wounds in the shooting, didn't make their charge, cost me 3 CP, and then died without doing anything. Mm-hmm. So I was like, that's it. That's all there is to it. So we played out the game. He ended up kicking my ass. It ended up being 91-30. So in 2 games, I scored 74 points or something like that at 2 of my 3 games, and I was like, and so end of day 1, I was licking my wounds, drinking like an idiot, and going into day 2, I was like, you know what, new day, fresh set of eyes. I didn't stay up stupid late. You know, I didn't go out and get I hit a wall that night, actually. That's what happened.
On the second day you hit a wall?
No, day 1. That's when we went all the way out to dinner. And I was like, Chuck's got to go to bed.
That was Thursday you hit the wall.
Thursday? That was before.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why I did so bad on day 1. That might explain things.
Yeah.
Which will come into play later, mind you. And so day 2, I got paired into a guy named Joel, and really, really cool guy. Relatively new. He's been only playing about a year, and it was his first LVO. He was playing Death Guard with Baby Knights in support. And
so it was like I remember because we got paired in Death Guard at the same time. Yeah. And I look over at your table and I'm like, God damn, Chuck's got Knights for 4 games in a row.
Yeah, I had a good chuckle out of it. And so it was funny. Eerily similar to my other games, I win the roll to go first. I move up. I kill 2 of the 3 Baby Knights in shooting, and hurt the other, because I've killed 1 Baby Knight, it exploded. Kill 2nd Baby Knight, it exploded. And all 3 Baby Knights were right next to each other. And I took Auric Mortalis because I was like, I'm gonna, if I win the roll, like I can apply a ton of pressure, and we'll see how he reacts to it. And with my redeploy
from Auric,
yeah, and he's playing Death Guard, so they're not fast. You know what I mean? He can't really like shift and like haul ass across the board to catch my bikes. It's not going to happen. So I felt really good after turn 1. Unfortunately, the rest of the game unraveled just like my game 1 and my game 3 did, and just didn't work out. Now, unfortunately, we didn't get to play out the entirety of the game. We ran out of time, which happens, and I didn't play on a clock in any of my games, which will come into play later. But it was a very enjoyable game. Super nice guy, and I more importantly, I just wanted him to have a good time at LVO, because we talked a little bit about, I talked to everybody I play. I was kind of asking him how it was and like what was his experience like, and it seemingly he didn't say it outright, but it kind of felt like he didn't have some very good games day 1, and so like I can understand, there's some super tryhards, and some of those tryhards have great attitudes, and some of them don't. And even if you're not a tryhard, sometimes you have good attitudes, and sometimes you don't. And I think he might have hit a player that may not have been the nicest of opponents. Mm-hmm. Whatever. I don't know. But I just kind of got the implication that might have happened. So anyways, wanted to have a good game. We played out, whatever. We go as fast as we can. We just didn't... I think we were down to like 15 minutes or less at the end of 3. So like we just didn't make it as far into the game. Ended up losing that one as well. I couldn't catch him on primary. Death Guard with armor of contempt and and damage reduction literally cuts my output in half, because I got mostly 2 damage weapons. So it's, other than the knights, I was able to like wreck the knights. And then funny enough, that one last knight had 2 wounds remaining. I couldn't kill it. So I got 0 for Auric. Because I had to kill all 3 knights. And it was funny because I got a Terminator into him in the backfield to get me behind enemy lines. I was like, okay. Tried to get both Terminators, both single-man Terminators into him. Got one into him. I was like, okay, I got this. Right? Did not have it. I did not have it. He made some saves, and he was down to like 2 wounds, and then he stayed at 2 wounds, and I couldn't catch him. So, like, he was able to kill my bikes and stuff like that. So,
I thought Auric split the points if the unit's like combat squad.
Not the way
Auric
Auric
kill
reads.
the whole thing.
So I don't maybe I did it wrong. Maybe. I'll find out. I'm sure someone will comment.
Oh wait, no, Auric is the one that the only one that doesn't do that because it's dependent on killing them in melee and
to get the extra points. Yes.
Battlefield. Yeah,
I could have killed the baby knight in shooting and gotten the 5 points, but I knew I needed to go for the 15. And there was no way he was going to make it to my deployment zone because he was bracketed down to nothing. And he would have had to, and all he basically did was fall back and advance away from me. So he did like no shooting. But it was enough to deny me the points, and so it. But again, in the long run, didn't matter. And so after that game, I was like, we went to lunch. We were in line at Smashburger, and I was like, we were like not gonna even make it back to the hall in time to even just eat our food because it was very crowded. Blah blah blah. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I don't want that kind of stress. I'm already frustrated. I don't want to carry that around the rest of the day. I don't want to make someone else have a bad experience because of me. So I'm just going to step back.
And so this is where I blame you for facing Deathwing again because you dropped.
Very possible, maybe. Oh, and so like I earlier, I think I said I went 1-4. I did not go 1-4. I went 1-3 because I dropped after 1-3. So I didn't play game 5 and game 6.
Yeah, we did stick around for day 3 though, and I think that's the day I learned the most. We played some casual games.
Yeah.
I went up against Scott Rumpel, and we actually traded armies. So he played my Grey Knights, and I played his Space Wolves. And I learned more from him about my own faction than I have learned in like months of playing 40k. He did this thing with my librarian that I've never ever considered doing, and I'm just like, this is brilliant. Why have I never done this?
What did he do?
So the Mortal Wound Bomb librarian, he popped him out, cast all his spells, killed a unit of Wolfen with him, because I don't know what the hell I'm doing with Space Wolves, and my Wolfen were, you could cast at them.
Flapping in the breeze.
Yeah, and then he gated the librarian back to safety, and I'm just like,
oh, yeah.
I've literally never thought about doing that. My librarian usually just sits out there and hopes that he makes it till turn 2.
Right.
But doing that also scores teleport assault points because it doesn't. The way teleport assault reads is if that unit was teleported during the turn and kills a unit, then you score points. But it doesn't say it has to teleport before it kills the unit.
Just has to teleport at some point.
It just has to teleport and then kill a unit, or kill a unit and teleport. Yeah. And so I was like, that is actually genius because with the new Arcs of Omen, teleport assault is worth 5 points now if you can score it.
Ooh.
Which is insanity. Yeah, you can max that out in 3 turns.
What's the range on Gate?
Gate is a 12-inch range, but you can boost it to 16, to 18 with a CP.
Line of sight or no line of sight?
You don't need line of sight.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's good. That's real good.
Yeah. There's some real spicy stuff with our Arcs of Omen I think I want to try, but yeah, so I played versus Scott. He was kind of mentoring me and coaching me through terrain placement and things that I just have never considered before. So we ended up playing out that first game. He beat me with Grey Knights with like by 8 points or something. And then we swapped back to our original armies, and he killed me at my Grey Knights. I think I scored 2 points.
Oh
so
my
I was
gosh.
at 12. Yeah, he killed me basically on turn 1. I was at 12, and he basically was... Well, he couldn't have scored max because he needed to land charges, but he was essentially max points. And I'm just like, this is what happens when I play into an actual experienced player who knows what they're doing with an army. But, like, I have so much room to grow, which is good. I don't like thinking that I'm already at my peak. I have all of this room to grow and become a better player. So I'm excited. I'm really excited for the new Arcs of Omen stuff. I'm excited to keep playing the game and develop and hone my my Grey Knights a little bit, and then maybe play some Custodians a little later down the season.
Yeah. The anointing oils have worn onto you?
I can only rub your body so many times before starting to rub myself. You know.
Oh, that's funny. So this is a great segue though. So taking LVO, your experience, your games, playing with Scott, which is always a huge benefit.
Mhm.
What are your goals going into this next season?
This next season, I'm hoping to play. I'm gonna play Grey Knights more. I learned a lot from the game with Scott. I learned a lot watching. The player's name was Matt Laura. He ran an all infantry Grey Knights list. So this is what I'm into, is these weird off meta lists. And he was the top. I think he was the top Grey Knights player of all of LVO. I think he took like 16th overall.
Oh, I'm familiar with Matt because he almost won LVO with Custodes last year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and watching some of the things he did, I'm just like, I've never considered this. I can't believe I've never thought of this. And it seemed like such basic things. So I still have so much room to grow as a Grey Knights player, and I want to not necessarily place first in any tournaments, but I would like to do hit a top 10 with Grey Knights in the next 6 months. I've signed up for that GT that's happening in February.
Me too.
Are you signed up for that one? Yes! Let's go! I hope I dodge you because you're playing Emperor's Chosen again.
Oh, you know it.
But I want to try and place like a top 5 in one of the GTs. So I'm going to try and really make time to play. My work schedule's kind of free for this month, so I want to try and get some practice games in and play some Arcs of Omen and become a better player and a better tactician. And hopefully during that time I'll have time to paint some Custodes up and transition and try out some Custodes and see what it's like to be Chuck for a day.
Dangerous.
So yeah, that's kind of my ambitions, is just to grow as a player. I think they took down the ITC scoring, so I finished like top. I think I was like rank 53 for Grey Knights after LVO, which I think is pretty good for the first year. But after seeing what's possible with Grey Knights, there is a very large gap between where I'm at near the top 50 and like the top 15 players. It is incredibly huge. And you can see it too, just looking at the points. Like the top 10, they're all like the 700s range, and then there's a drastic drop down to like 600s, and then down to 500s. So I'm curious to see kind of where I'm at in the middle of the year. I'm hoping to get 4 GTs in with Grey Knights before the middle of the year, so I can switch over to Custodes and try and learn something different and something new. So
for sure, yeah, it's funny you bring up kind of players and their rankings and things of that nature, because something I kind of really noticed at LVO, like the Denver crew was there in force, Denver Mountain Trolls. They got some.
I actually did not see a single one of those guys.
What?
The whole time I was there. Yeah.
They were everywhere.
Weird. Yeah, I didn't see them at all. I guess
they got some amazing talent on their team, and I was, funny enough, because hanging out with Rumpel, you get to vicariously live through his ability, talking to other players that you would never talk to, just because of the fact that like I'm never going to be paired into them unless it's game 1. And so like talking to like Matt Evans, who's like he's an amazing NIDS player. He's just an amazing player, but he plays NIDS mostly. Cody, I know he plays a lot of I think it's Dark Eldar, but amazing player. Like listening to these guys talk about their games and kind of like watching the interaction between like higher level players, but then also like realizing when you start looking at these guys, right? They can go to these big tournaments and they will stereotypically go 5-1, like at these big tournaments, and like that's impressive. And like we had some folks in our Utah group from the Lightly Salted group that did exceptionally well. I think Chris went 5-1.
I think Chris was the only one who was 5-1.
It was his first LVO.
There was a lot of 4-2 Lightly Salted guys.
Yeah, they did really well as a team. They did exceptionally well, and that I applaud them. Like they did amazing, and it was very, very awesome to kind of see. But what I realized though is like if I want to get better, right? There's a couple things I got to change some things about the way I play and what I do, right? So
Yeah.
I had 2 people be like, Chuck, you want to get better? You got to stop drinking before games. I'm like, fair enough, right? Because like I'm sure I was inhibited, but it's a double-edged blade for me, right? Because I am a pretty outgoing person, but I just get more outgoing, of course, once I've had a couple, tip a few back.
Right.
And it's a part of it is I'm not like a super try hard where it's like I'm gonna show up to the table, I'm not gonna talk to you, I'm not gonna make small talk, I'm just gonna sit there, stare at the board, and give tabula rasa, just a blank slate. That's not how I play.
Mm-hmm.
So, but at the end of the event, I was like, man, I'm so pissed at myself. I was pissed at myself for dropping. I was pissed at myself for how terrible I played. And then also like letting my frustrations like boil out and like come out of me. Like that really just bothered me. Mm-hmm. So I was talking to Christian, one of my teammates, and he had literally, him and I played a game on a weekend just for shits and grins. And the last time he played was when he played me on stream almost a year prior. So he is going to LVO with a brand new army that he's only played one time. And so after the event, I was like, all right, Christian, this year we're going to try harder. We're going to do things differently. And I was like, I want you to be my accountability buddy throughout the season and kind of push me. And I told Thomas the same thing. I'm going to tell you the same thing. Mm-hmm. I need people to kind of help press me forward. And those that are watching, same thing, right? Give me shit. Like, I handle that kind of pressure in a manner in where, like, I don't like to disappoint. And I want to make sure I put my best foot forward. I don't always do that. And generally speaking, my expectations of what I want to do and my reality of what I put into it are very different. It's like we interviewed Scott. I'm like, what do you do to prepare? And he went off on this like A to Z list. And I'm like, shit, I barely show up. Like, I don't do any of that kind of stuff.
Right. I know. He was like talking about preparing, and I'm like, I haven't played 40K in a month. That's my preparation. I'm still reading my rules because I can't remember them.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, what do I do? Like, I need to get more reps, of course, because reps is by far one of the biggest things that you can do to help your gameplay. But I really need to get reps into lots of different armies so that I can understand how they work, because going into these kinds of tournaments, if you really want to do well, you got to know how your strengths match into their strengths and their weaknesses, and how their strengths match into your weaknesses and vice versa, all that crap.
Yeah.
And you don't know that when you go into a game against Chaos Knights and they're like, what does your army do? Like, that isn't a good start.
That's my fault, Chuck. I never finished painting mine. We could have had practice games.
Well, we have, Chaos Knight players here in Utah. Lee, the Warhammer Nomad, he comes to a bunch of our events, and he's an amazing Chaos Knights player. So there's opportunity. It's just that I don't necessarily capitalize on it, and I always struggle with it because I prioritize my time in 3 ways. My family's first, then I have work, regular everyday 9 to 5 or 8 to 5, whatever. And then Warhammer. And most of that time is spent doing the stream and working on the stream and trying to improve the stream, that kind of stuff. So there isn't always time to get an extra game in a week. Like, if I feel lucky if I get to play on the stream to get that rep, because otherwise I could go, 2 or 3 weeks, a month without playing. Like in December, I don't think I played a single game. And that's not necessarily what you need leading up to LVO. You need lots of reps, lots of practice, and all that kind of mess. And so the other thing is, like, I got to think about my army differently. And it's like, even list building is simple. Like, it's not an easy task. I come up with these ideas and I'm like bouncing them off. It's like the same. I go through this cycle, right? Every time we leave LVO, we're driving back to Utah. I'm like talking to Rumple and I'm like, bouncing off ideas off of him. And he's always asking me questions. And I'm like, they're very straightforward questions. But what's so funny about him is that it's like the way his mind works about the way he builds his list. He's always looking at, what does that unit get me? What can it net me? And how is it going to benefit the style in which I'm building this army? And I put some stuff together. And I started spouting it off to him, and he was like, well, why are you taking this? Why are you taking that? And it was like, in my mind, I had this great idea. And then on paper, it's just like, well, it's not that great of an idea. I mean, it really isn't. So there's all kinds of things that, like you just said, there's a lot of room for improvement. And if I want to get to be a 4-2 player at LVO, and I don't mean like a fluke. Like, I know you guys joke about my run at War Games, but that was a fluke.
It was not a fluke.
It was a fluke.
You had some good matchups. I was one of your matchups.
I know. I got lucky in our game because we talked about it. You go first, I lose.
You deployed very aggressively, although you do have Castlin's mark, but
I YOLO'd because I didn't know what else to do. It wasn't like this grand scheme where I was like, I know how to beat Drake. It was just, I'm gonna try this.
Sometimes that's the way to do it, is you just have to press the gas and delete the brake.
The gas was all the vodka I had prior to our game. Maybe some food. But like it was I think I had a great set of games, and things lucked. I think the way that the dice rolled and the way I got my matchups and the things that happened in those games just managed to work themselves out in a manner that worked out for me in that event, because that's the best I've ever done in any event ever. And I want to recreate that. I got to figure out how, and part of that is really trying to change my perspective of how I prepare, how I play, and yada yada yada.
I think we talked about this a little bit on Sunday, and a big part of that, that's when we were streaming super consistently. We had all those RTTs and GTs right in a row, right before War Games. So I think both you and I were, I don't want to say like kind of near our peaks for last year, because I don't think I hit my peak until way later in the year, but you definitely were on another level than previous in the year at that point in time. Like you were kind of unstoppable for a minute there, just watching your, because I think it was just getting the reps in, getting the practice, and having those consistent weekly games, whether it's on stream or whatever. And that's something I know I'm going to struggle with for the next few months with work and everything. Is getting those consistent games is going to be really tough.
Yeah.
And it's hard. It's really hard right now.
It is. It's a huge time sink. Yeah. Every game is. I mean, you're talking like 3 hours at least. Like,
yeah, only tournament games last 3 hours. Every other game lasts 4.5, 5.
And to that point,
yeah,
I'm clocking myself every game. Every game.
I think that's a really good start to at least get the rhythm.
Yeah, place. I mean, if I want to play at that level, because we joke, right? We were joking with Scott, and he ended up dropping after day one, and we joke because he was like, I flew too close to the sun, right? Because he played a GSE player that I think is a WTC player. I can't remember his name. That just did some crazy maneuver on Scott, and Scott's mind was just like, I can't believe that he just did this maneuver, and I was like, shit. Like, Scott's one of the best players I know. And I'm like, if he's pulling fast ones on Scott like this, and I'm like, oh my God, there's this whole other layer of like depth of like sharks that are out there that I'm not aware of. And I'm like, oh my God. So, there is a clear, tiers of players that are out there. And if you want to play at those levels, you got to put in the time and you got to put in the effort. And then you just have to understand how the game works in a different way that most players understand how the game works.
Right.
I mean, it's just the truth of it. And maybe I don't have the mental capacity to do that. But I'm going to try. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah, I think my goal overall is just to feel more comfortable stepping up to the table versus anything. I think one of my biggest flaws, and maybe this isn't, I don't think it's a flaw, like a character flaw, it's a competitive flaw more than anything, is that I'm very lenient when I play games. It's like, if someone asks to take something back, I'm just like, yeah, it's fine. Or I'll even like go as far as to like tell them, oh, like you're going to want to kill this dude because this is way more important than focusing over there. So I don't know. But I feel like I just let too many things slip to be a full competitive player and to play the game in a way where, you're supposed to hold each other accountable for things, but still have this fair back and forth agreement. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that this is something that is a pregame conversation, right? It's like, what kind of game are you looking for? Because when you talk to your opponent, do you want a very tight by the rules game where you try to do something out of phase, the rest of the stuff you did prior is null and void, or are you going to allow takebacks, right? And if you do, what does that mean? Do you mean I can roll back to a previous phase? Does that not mean that? I think that a lot of people, myself included, I don't generally have those conversations because most of the time pregame, like you're up against the clock as soon as you start, and that's the thing about the clock, right? Christian, Scott, and I were talking about it, and he's like, you have the clock on the table. It needs to match up with the round timer, right? You got 10 minutes to do the freaking terrain, pick your secondaries, get through deployment, like your time is started, so you need to get that clock moving as soon as possible, as soon as the round starts, to get all of that stuff done to allow you and your opponent an equitable amount of time in a game to be able to play it out. And the thing that I hate about it is that it's necessary at the top level. Like, it's absolutely necessary. As you continue to move down the ranks, it's beneficial. But when you start running into players who've never been to an LVO, never been to a tournament, this is their first tournament, they may not have been playing that long. It feels bad to be like, we're going to clock. I've bought lots of reps. You got very few reps. You're probably going to run out of time, but that's on you. I don't like that. And to your point, I am very open about allowing people the opportunity to fix things. I mean, there's times I'll even be like, did you mean to put them within 6 inches of Trajan or within 3 inches of yada yada? And they'll be like, oh, I didn't. I could have just let it go and said, like, okay, let's just let it be, and then so on and so on. But a lot of that is dictated by my opponent. If my opponent is real cool and just very easy going, then that's the kind of game that I play with them. If they're very uptight, I will play an uptight game with them. But it's that social contract that you have with them. You're spending 3 hours of time with them. You want to have fun. You want to have a good time. But at the same time, we're all here to try to win games.
Yeah, I agree. I think a big thing for me too. I've asked Rempel to for help, just as like a mentor / coach, and if it happens, cool. If it doesn't, that's fine too. But just having a single conversation with him after asking him that question, we were talking about list building, and he's like, Drake, you told me to tell you not to do things, so I'm telling you not to do this. And I'm like, you're right. I know you're right, but I also hate it.
Yeah, it's
I
funny.
have this big clash between being the most competitive person, because I can be incredibly competitive if I want to be, and just wanting to have a good time playing the game. And that's my biggest clash that I'm going to have trying to become a better player, is the contrast between wanting to have fun and wanting to be competitive and grow.
Yeah, for sure. And and on that note, right? I'm not trying to be a player that looks for the hottest meta army and goes out there. I want to be good with the army I enjoy playing. That's what I want to be good at. I want to be a player who is known for playing that army well. I mean, and Rumpel is honestly, I know we talk about him a lot. I have my shrine back here. He really is the epitome of the kind of player I'd like to be. He's stuck with Space Wolves, thick and thin. Yeah, he bought a Votann army, and I give him shit about it, but now he's selling that army, because he didn't have interest in that, because, I mean, also his Space Wolves are going to get much better in arcs.
Yeah.
He's dropping 2 units and picking up 30 Meltaguns or some stupid shit like that. But anyways... the point is I want to be good with the army that I want to play. And what does that mean? That means I got to understand my strengths and weaknesses better than my opponent understands my strengths and weaknesses. I need to understand where my units are going to match best into their army and yada, yada, yada. That, again, is all part of this, whole pie chart, if you will, of time, saying how much time can I give to this hobby to try to do better, and that's the hard part.
Yep, I agree. I think the fun thing too for me, is with the changing seasons. Like Arcs is making the game so different.
Yeah.
There's so much that's changing. So my list, I was working on some lists last night, kind of putting some things together. And there are some Grey Knights units that I've been wanting to run for a long time. And I just haven't been able to because they just didn't make sense to run because the points weren't there or the troop tax or whatever. But with Arcs, there's no longer a troop tax, so I don't need to take
Right.
Strike Marines. I don't know what to do with Strike Marines as it is. I just forget that they exist when they're on the table. There was one game, it was versus one of the Deathwing players. I had 15 Strike Marines. They were all on the home field objective. I'm just like, I don't know what to do with these. This isn't a good place for them. They should be in the mix, using Hammerhand and rerolling wounds versus Transhuman. That's the best thing that I have against that. And yet I still didn't do it. So I have this really interesting list in mind that kind of takes what I learned from Matt Laura's list and what I like to do in my own lists. And I want to try and do, something different. We did get some points. I think my LVO list went down about 180 points with the points changes, which was cool.
Quite a bit.
Yeah. And so I'm basically running like almost 30 more Marine bodies now in this new list, on top of still having the 2 Dread Knights and 3 characters. So I think there's some really cool opportunities that are going to come up with Grey Knights. People think they're really, really strong in this meta, which makes sense with no Armor of Contempt. Dread Knights become very good again. What I don't want to do, which Scott will slap me for this, but I don't want to run the 4 Dread Knight 30 Interceptor list. That's what's going to be the most common top performing Grey Knights list because it's easy to pilot and it is fast and it's killy and it just does everything that Grey Knights do well in a single list, and it's 2 data sheets. I think that's almost all the points is 4 Dread Knights and 30 Interceptors is just about
Sounds
2,000
amazing.
points. Yeah, it's an amazing list. Don't get me wrong. There's a reason why it's going to be the list. But I you know me, Chuck. I know me. I try to avoid whatever the most meta thing is because I don't know. I just feel like I want to challenge myself to learn with things that aren't training wheels, and that list feels like training wheels Grey Knights to me.
But at the same time, it's the Ferrari list, though, right? It's like it's not training wheels. It is the best list.
Yeah,
I mean that we know of, right?
Yeah, and this is where that's where Scott would be like, "Well, Drake, didn't you say you want to get better?"
I mean, 100%. That's the thing. Is like, right? It's like the accountability side is like, yes, there's pieces of us that are like, oh, I just really like that model, and then you struggle with the rule of cool versus what is most efficient for your army. Like Scott and those players that play like Scott, efficiency is king. It's all about points and return on investment of those points. Where am I going to get the most bang for my buck? And honestly, like, for Custodes for a long while, I felt very spoiled because there really wasn't a lot of bad units in the army. When Terminators lost OBSEC, yeah, they kind of took a shelf and that kind of stuff. But with, like you mentioned, Arcs of Omens, the detachment rules have changed drastically. I don't have to take troops anymore. Like, I don't have attacks. But I'm still drawn to Sagittarium because they're just a good unit. Like, they're a lot of shooting for extreme range, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So it's like, what kind of world do I live? It's like not taking bikes. Like, in the list I sent to you, right? I don't have any bikes in it
yeah,
at all.
I saw that list. I'm just like, there's something missing here, and it's bikes.
Yeah. Yeah, I was like, I'm going to give it a try, right? Like the Australian Open or whatever it was called. The guy took 2 blocks of 10 Wardens. I'm taking like half of those. And I want to try some different things to see how it works out. And Emperor's Chosen because of their flexibility, right? I mean, I keep imagining in my head, right? Okay, if I'm playing Scott, if I can deploy the terrain right, I make his Wolfen come out into the open where I can try to shoot him, ideally, because you don't want to close with Wolfen. Like, their fight on death is dumb. But let's say he does. Like, let's say the terrain's set up in a way where I can't stop him from getting his Wolfen at me. So I'm like, what do? I'm like, oh, I throw my Wardens out there. Make them all Shadow Keepers for a turn. Every one of his Wolf have -1 attack coming in. And then on top of that, right, like there's all kinds of shenanigans that can happen. But there's a lot of flexibility in the list because, and then if I am charged, oh, okay, I can just back away and just shoot the crap out of them with whatever's left, if anything is left, of course, barring terrible dice rolls and whatever. But the thought is like there's just a lot of opportunity there to be able to cater the list based on the army you're playing, the terrain deployment, and so on and so on. So I don't know. Is it gonna work? I have no clue, but we're gonna give it a try.
Yeah. Yeah. Either way, I'm just really excited to keep playing the game.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's a whole new season. I'm really excited to get into arcs. I want it, like with the GT that we're going to is on, was it 3 weeks from now? If that?
February, I think it's the last week
25th and 6th or something like that?
Yeah, 25th, 26th.
Yeah, so we got a few weeks, to get some prep games in, and then we'll have the stream games and all that kind of stuff. So like ideally, I'm hoping I can get in a game a week. I'm hoping I can do more, but that's stretching it. So like, 4 reps is not Art of War. Playing 8 games or more a week, like that's not the same. And then
I don't have that kind of time.
Yeah, I don't have that availability. So like, I got to temper my enthusiasm with what reality will allow me to have without sacrificing the time that's important for my family and for work.
Right. Yeah, I think it's going to be a good year. As long as they don't really bork 10th edition, I think it's going to be a really good year for 40K.
Yeah, I'm
excited. It's exciting to see Space Marines coming back. As much as I hate Space Marines, it's a faction that is very easy to understand what's going on. Hopefully it's not too overwhelming. Yeah, that's the thing I'm scared the most of, is all these free Meltas. Someone was telling me they have a list where they now have 50 Meltas for free, and that's 500 points of Meltas that are now worth 0 points.
Yep. It's ugly.
Yeah, so it's exciting. I just can't wait to see what happens. I can't wait to see how everything kind of develops and where things shift. And just to be, part of the hobby. And I feel like I say that after every one of these videos that we've been doing. It's just like, I'm just excited to be here. But I am. It's exciting to be here and to play the game and have this community and this hobby to, play with other people.
Yeah, the one thing I love about LVO is, and I'm going to ask you this question because I'm curious if you feel the same way. After every LVO, I feel very rejuvenated about the game and about the hobby. Do you feel that, or is it different?
Yeah, I definitely do, and I experienced this first with SLO. After SLO was over, they were doing the awards, handed everything out. I was like, it was bittersweet for me. I was super happy because it was such an awesome event and it was cool participating in this 3-day GT. But when it was over, I was like, dang, that's it. But I wanted more. Like, I wanted to keep playing. Like, I could have played 3 more games the next day. I wanted to just keep going and play the game. And right around SLO, that was the time where my work schedule started getting really busy. So I hit SLO, and then it's just been this massive drought where I'll get like 1 game in every month.
Right.
And it's been really hard to keep the momentum. But yeah, with LVO, even LVO, day 1 was brutal. I had very little energy at the end of day 1, but when I woke up day 2, I was stoked, ready to go. Yeah. I got down there super early to drop my army off, and I was just like, I'm ready to do this. Let's keep playing games. So day 2 ended. Day 3, I was pretty burnt out, but getting those games in with Rumpel just reignited everything.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I know y'all want to watch the Bengals game, and I said I'd watch with you guys. I'm gonna get you your smash burger, but man, I could go for another 2 or 3 games of 40K right now.
Believe me, I wanted to play more, but I did really want to watch the Bengals play.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I love, it does help get me back into that, and like we've talked about, we're gonna try to work in another stream for hobby. I know there's a lot of interest there, so we're working through the logistics of that. What does that look like? When is it gonna happen? That kind of stuff, and I really want to get that going. And like I had talked to you and Brady about, I want to get additional thematic terrain and all that kind of stuff for the different tabletops that we have, and kind of help build on some of the visuals plus all the other stuff that we have on the roadmap. So like it's a very exciting time, and especially coming right out of LVO with all of that extra vigor. You know, I want to capitalize on that as best as we can.
Yep.
And I think it's going to be a good year, though. I really do.
I'm here for it as much as I can be. I'm here for it. I was joking around. I was joking around with Scott during lunch the second day, and I was like, "I'll quit my job if you'll mentor me, Scott. I will play as many 40K games as you'll let me play with you."
That's funny.
Oh man, to be unemployed again, it would be fantastic.
It's a gift and a curse.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm super excited. Anytime I go to a tournament or an event or anything, I just get reinvigorated. Especially with these big long throws. It always feels bad though, because it's just enough time for me to forget like fundamentals of the game, and it's enough games for me to relearn those fundamentals. Where I want to be like, okay, I want to apply these. I want to do the things I'm learning, and then I'll forget about those things again. So
yeah, it's funny. When at the Las Vegas team tournament, there was a team that we played. I can't remember the name of the team, but they have some really good players. And one of the guys that played on their team, like he took meticulous notes. He was a Knights player. I mean, like he had a whole notebook about like all the games that he has been playing. I'm sure he has multiple notebooks full. And he just took lots of notes around all his games, the things that went right, the things that went wrong, things to remember, things to forget, all that kind of stuff. And it worked very well for him. Now, I don't think I have that discipline because I get so into the game. It's like, you know, I'm glad your dad took pictures because shit, I forgot to take pictures. Like I was
literally about to say
we even talked about it. Yeah, we even talked about like make sure to take lots of pictures. Immediately forgot. Just gone.
And I was looking back through my feed and I took like 6 pictures. And then I texted my dad. I was like, "Hey, Dad, how many pictures did you take?" And then he just sent me all of them, and I'm like, "All right, thank you."
There we go. Very good.
Yeah. So overall, more 40K, get better at the game, do some more hobbying. I also want to get better at the hobbying part of it too. Hopefully make some time for that. I think I really like what how my custodies are coming out. I wish I wanted to put the effort into my Grey Knights, but like that seems like a sunk cost fallacy to me right now. Like, yeah, most of them are painted and they're all battle ready. Do I want to spend time painting those, or do I want to work on new things? And new things always win.
No, I understand. That's I parts of me wanted to try out another faction or whatever, but I really enjoy Custodes, and again, a lot of it, honestly, there is a barrier of entry because I don't want to go through and model and paint another faction and all that kind of stuff, and my Custodes are basically already done, so it is an easier path for me than trying to do something else. I mean, already, being strapped for time, I can't make more. I mean, I already get up stupid early in the morning, and it's just the way life is. So, I think it's going to be a good time. I'm really excited to kind of have a recap at the end of this year and see where we were now in comparison to where we were before. And like I said,
we should do a video reviewing this video at the end of the year and be like, man, we were stupid.
I knew I should have kept drinking.
Oh man, I was actually speaking of drinking, I was telling you guys, like, if I'm 1 or 2 drinks in, I feel like I play my best because I'm not like super high strung, but I'm not too drunk to forget things. There's like this happy medium where it becomes a performance enhancer for me instead of a performance detriment.
And see, that was what was so hilarious about my blunders in my games, was that in none of my games was I drunk. Like, I was feeling good. I had a good buzz, but I mean, I guess you could say I'm drunk, right? If you're buzzed, you're drunk. Okay. But it wasn't so impairing that I was like a crazy person at the table, and like I'm a loud person, so like that's just gonna be part of my games. But I was like, especially that game 3 on day 1, I was like, I am like just fine, and I made like the dumbest error possible, and it just like I don't know how to explain it. It just forgetfulness. I just literally, I think in my mind what happened was, because all my army moved up behind that bike unit, I assumed they moved and then forgot that I should have moved them first. It should have been the very first thing, and that's the lesson I took. If you do that move that unit first when movement phase starts. Do that first before anything else. That way you got it done. And it would have been fine. But I don't even know it would have been fine. It would have been a different game. So,
Yeah.
but all right. Well, like I said, I will be your accountability buddy. I
Yes.
hope you can be mine as well. I think the more
Yes.
accountability buddies we have, and the more we try, I think the better we'll do, the better our results will be. And so, yes, we should do a recap video at the end of the year, and let's see where we are. And you know what? We should do like a mid-year as well, and say
Yeah.
like, okay, where are we at in the ITC for our faction? Where are we at in the ITC overall? Okay, what do we need to do in the second half of the season to improve on that?
Yeah, you know, Mike texted me earlier today, and he was like, "Hey Drake, I had I think 67 or 66% win rate with Eldari this last year," and I was like, "That's a really like good place to start. Is just going back through the tournaments, tallying up your win loss,
Right.
and seeing kind of where you landed." I haven't gone back and done mine because I don't pay for BCP, so I can't actually go back and look. But I honestly think I'm exactly 50% for Grey Knights, if not one game off in either direction.
Interesting. I'm gonna guess I am sub 50.
I don't think so. Not with 5-1. That skews it.
Well, I mean, yes, if you take into the total number of events that I've been to in comparison, sure. But like if I look at just pure games, my guess would be I'm sub 50 would be my guess. I think I would be in the high 40s, but I don't think I don't think it's that high.
Yeah, pure games, I am definitely sub 50 for sure. Because I don't think I won a single game with Grey Knights on the stream last year. And that was 3 or 4 games at least there. But yeah, I'm curious to see. I should really start the tabletop. Also not sponsored again, but the Tabletop Battles app is really good. If you want to track these season-long stats, it actually lets you like do the whole season and track every game that you play as long as you're inputting the data into it. So
yeah,
I want to be better at using that and be better at tracking how I'm doing, because playing casually and not counting points is fine, but you don't actually gain knowledge playing like that. At least you can't see the stats, and I like numbers, and numbers make sense.
Oh yeah.
And if I can make the number go up, then I'll do everything I can to do that.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, if you're not tracking the same thing over and over again, how do you know you're getting better?
Right. There's one number that I know won't increase, and that's the number of times I take Engage on All Friends as a secondary.
Yeah, it's terrible.
So that's one thing I will be improved upon in this year at the very least.
Okay, man. Well, any last thoughts before we call it?
I don't know. I guess we have the tournament coming up. I think it's already full, but you can get on the wait list.
It's true.
The war band is coming back for the GT.
Yes.
There's a few people signed up, which is cool.
Yeah, there'll be some DDR folks there.
Yeah. Just excited to get back at it. It's at Paragon, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, sweet. Cool. Yeah. Any last thoughts? LVO's awesome. Gonna go every year.
Yes.
Gonna hold each other accountable. And looking forward to this year.